Hi, guys. Yeah, can they come up?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So I have, what's the name of the, sorry, foundation again? You. I didn't see it there. They told me where to start. Sorry, can you guys remind me of the name of your?
Oh, we're Star Community.
Okay.
Yeah, we're Star Community.
Welcome, Star Community. So we have a proclamation for you guys today on behalf of the Abilities Advocacy Month. People have the dignity to be valued and accepted for their abilities, and the inclusion of all abilities is integral to the growth and prosperity of our community. The citizens of Hagerstown should raise awareness of the importance of advocating for all abilities and be made aware of the value of the people with different abilities. And now, therefore, I, Councilwoman Anderson, and our council members and mayor of the city of Hagerstown do hereby proclaim and recognize September 2025 for Abilities Advocacy Month in Hagerstown, Maryland. You're welcome. You guys.
Thank you so much. This is our second year proclaiming September as Abilities Advocacy Month, and it's so important not only to us, but all the people that we support. Again, we're Star Community. We're a local provider for adults with disabilities, and the whole point of our awareness campaign, Together We Rise, is about building a community that is better for people with disabilities, and the whole concept behind it is that it's broken down into the acronym RISE, meaning respect, include, support, and educate, which are the 4 things that all of us can do to make a better community for everyone and people of all abilities. So this is just one way that we're trying to raise awareness of everyone in their daily lives, remembering to support people with disabilities and include everyone regardless of their needs. So this is really great. So wonderful.
Thank you. Glad to have you guys. There you go. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Pin for you. I put that right here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
There he is. He's
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hang on.
Thank you.
Hang on. Get a picture.
Eric's gonna get a picture.
He's coming.
Perfect. Okay, and good smiles. And 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You should have a time. Next up, we have a proclamation for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month by Councilwoman Bell.
Jasmine Mason. I only found it fitting for me to read this to you because I too have lost 2 children. So I want to give you a hug. I know what it means to be a grieving mother. So approximately 1 million pregnancies each year in the United States end in early pregnancy loss, stillbirth, death of a newborn child. Whereas Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month was first declared by President Ronald Reagan on October 25th, 1988. This recognizes the loss so many parents experience across the United States and around the world. It is also meant to provide resources for parents who have lost children due to miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, molar pregnancies, stillbirths, birth defects, SIDS, and other causes. Whereas 1 in 4 experiences pregnancies and infant loss. Early pregnancy loss is the most common type of loss. According to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, studies reveal that anywhere from 10 to 25% of clinically recognized pregnancies will end in early pregnancy loss. Whereas many citizens of Hagerstown have experienced the devastating loss of a baby, a month of remembrance honors in the lives of children taken far too soon and support grieving parents, grandparents, siblings, and others whose lives were forever altered by the heartbreaking loss of a child. Now, therefore, I, Erica Bell, the rest of the council, and our mayor, Bill McIntyre, do proclaim 2025 as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month in Hagerstown, Maryland, and encourage all residents to become educated in the opportunities to prevent pregnancy, infant loss, and support bereaved families, and prevention is not possible. For you, my dear.
All right, next up, we have the enough dates from Mr. Keith Fanjoy, President and Chief Executive Officer of Sanmar.
Doing, y'all.
How are you, Keith?
So very excited to be here with you all today to give some good news. You know, we all need some good news. So I'm here to give some updates regarding the Enough Act and the implementation of the resources that were a part of that. So I came here with some guests last fall when we were applying for this. We took a big swing and went for a Track 3 implementation grant, which meant that we would be able to bring in millions of dollars from the Governor's Office of Children in Hagerstown to address key needs, right? Not only just addressing some initial challenges that families experience, but investing in what does thriving look like in the future. I'm very pleased to say that the mayor, Scott, Councilwoman Anderson, others were with us in January when we announced that we had received the award. And so over the course of this year, for the first quarter of 2025, we focused on developing contracts with partner agencies. In the second quarter, those agencies and us focused on hiring staff. There's about 16 new staff across those agencies that were hired. And then as of the summer, we're underway. We're underway in terms of beginning to implement services. So just for those that may need a little update on the Enough Act. So the Moore administration through the Governor's Office of Children announced the Enough Act as a way to tackle the generational challenges of childhood poverty that persists throughout the state of Maryland in certain communities. Enough stands for engaging neighborhoods, organizations, unions, governments, and households. And it's a place-based strategy. That's language that I think the council and others should familiarize themselves with, which is a hyper-local strategy to try to have a collective process to bring about lasting change for a neighborhood. For those that may have some familiarity with Bester Community of Hope, for over a decade, we've provided a lot of emergency support to families in need in the south end of town. This really came out of our desire to prevent kids from having to access systems of care, to keep kids safely with their families and in their communities whenever possible. I've showed on the screen the map of the catchment. It's a little bit broader map than when we first started as Bester Community of Hope providing family services. We believe that we have more completely captured what is the South End territory. And this is because of the additional funding that we've received through the Enough Act. For those that may want to learn more about the area that we serve, you can go to our website, besterhope.org, which is for our community initiative. Our initial needs assessment that we talked about when we submitted our application was from a lot of diverse resources and citations, but we found from families that these were the core areas of challenge that families were experiencing. Obviously, the symptoms of poverty and the need for concrete supports, a lack of affordable and available housing, and not having amenities and spaces in their community to provide supports for families. The challenges related to mental health and substance use, and a lack of available childcare or affordable childcare and access to jobs. So these were the things that led into the design of our application to the Governor's Office of Children and asking them for additional resources to help in those areas. The overarching message that we've said is that we want to move our services away from just survival. We want to move to thriving, right? So we've done a very significant amount of work with very little resources. We've been very fortunate through organizations like the Department of Human Services in our county to do grant-based work for families on a voluntary basis, but it's not enough, right? We need to do more for families to get them out of this cycle of the challenge that they're in. So I think there's two key stories. I'm going to touch on this one briefly, which is there's a variety of direct services that are being offered. The vision of the grant to move from surviving to thriving does recognize that we have to be balanced in our approach. we're going to be serving families that in the South End are experiencing extreme poverty, extreme challenges. So we cannot approach this assuming that everybody is ready to move towards lasting change and having the resources they need to thrive. There's a variety of services in terms of concrete supports, direct services, substance abuse, hospice support. All of those are free and no charge to South End residents. But really what I want to focus on today is some opportunities to move towards thriving. And I think that these are very exciting opportunities for the city to be considering about how we might partner directly in the change process of this community. So everything that I'm about to talk about, both with community development as well as housing, is driven by the idea of we want to serve the residents that are in the South End now. So it's not our goal to focus on outside folks and bring them into the South End. Our focus is on serving the residents that are a part of the community today, positioning them for success, helping them elevate from their current circumstances to better circumstances. So the first significant announcement that we're ready to make today is that we've entered into a partnership with a national organization. They're actually an international firm called GEHL, G-E-H-L. And they are a community developer that has worked all over the world to support revitalization of local communities in their planning process. We arrived at this organization through consultation with purpose-built communities and other national partners, trying to determine who would be the best fit for our community. And so it's going to be a 10-month journey. The best analogy for the city to think about is the city engaged with urban partners in the past to think about catalyst projects to revitalize economic development downtown. What we want to work with GEHL on is catalyst projects to support families in the South End. What are the amenities that are going to support families having what they need in the South End, but also improve the environment, the lived spaces for kids and families, so they can walk to school safely, be surrounded by the kinds of things that every child deserves. So opportunities for the city to consider as we move forward would be, we believe this should be part of the city's 10-year plan. In terms of a bullet point, in terms of the South End, that as we develop a resident-driven plan, this will be highly resident-focused in terms of their feedback and what they believe should happen in their neighborhood. We would hope that this could be included as an instrument of success for the city. In addition, we're hoping to collaborate on two key things. Initially with GEHL, we're going to be looking to spend funds to invest in some, what I would describe as low-hanging fruit, things that can improve the aesthetic environment, things like opportunities for planting trees, opportunities for painting, maybe thinking about maybe some installations about things like trash containers, things that would bring about a safer, cleaner, more aesthetically pleasing environment for families. And so we don't want to do that in isolation. We want to do that in concert with the city. We want to invest in a way that's sustainable so that if the city is receiving those significant investments, part of the partnership would be that in the long term, there would be maintenance of those items. So that's something that we want the city involved with from the very beginning so that you're included in that decision. And then, of course, in the long term, GEHL is going to be recommending some significant catalyst projects. We are not crystal clear today on what those might be. And we're not coming to the city asking for any commitments on any financial investment today. I think it's really more about informing what those projects might be so that ultimately we can work in partnership to bring those to a reality. Any questions on GEHL before I move to the next item? Another big initiative as part of the Enough Act is our desire to help move families towards home ownership. And so I was excited to see in the paper over the last month, the city is sharing in that same agenda. We've held a variety of committee meetings with some city staff and other national partners thinking about the best strategy to help families in a community that struggles with having enough income. And so our goal over the next 3+ years is to help 150 families in the South End move from renter to owner. So not everybody is going to have the income to make that shift, but there are families that are close. And how do we help to create the environment and the opportunities for them to shift from renter to owner? Again, our focus is on the residents that are already there, whenever possible, to help them shift to vested stakeholders in the neighborhood. And I think for the city, that looks like taxpaying citizens that are able to contribute to the local economy in that way. One of the ways I think there's an opportunity to partner with the city is that we are proposing to fund a position through our Enough Act to fund a staff member, a full-time staff person over the next several years. And that person would wake up every single day thinking about how to help 150 families get home ownership. And so what are the factors and variables that would need to be accomplished to help that happen? We would hope that we could do that in concert with the city. I do believe there's potentially even a consideration that there should be some additional discussion about that the city could consider whether or not that is a city staff member. And we fund that city staff member and provide a scope of work around key priorities that have to be accomplished from that individual. Last quick thought, just in terms of the schedule. Next weekend, we're having a vibrant community celebration. It's our 10th annual community block party. It's in the city park. We usually have somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people show up during the course of that day. We have the Chuck Brown Band that will once again join us. It's a way for us to bring a lot of different diverse community resource providers and provide free activities for families. So this was always an activity that was designed to ensure that when people are thinking about the South End, this is a destination. This is a positive place with wonderful residents that care about their family. And it's a way to ensure that kids and families who are living in the South End are able to connect to each other in a positive way. So I would encourage everybody to join us in this celebration. It's a great activity. Hope I see you there. And I'll pause for any questions.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry. So first I want to say you're doing an amazing job.
Thank
I
you.
love to hear about just the different things that you're doing and bringing into the community. So I didn't see the map. So I know, the South End is pretty broad. I am curious to where if you know that, as we know, everybody that attends South High doesn't necessarily live in the South
That's
End.
right.
So do you still help with anything that them students may need?
Yeah, so two key things I really want to emphasize. One is the South End is not the only place that has needs.
Right.
And it's not the only worthy community of resources. The conditions of the grant as a place-based strategy was zeroing on a particular area that had concentrated poverty over time. And so because of our Bester Community of Hope work, we were uniquely positioned to respond. So I always like to start by saying, like, other communities, West End, Jonathan Street, East Side, like those are all valuable communities, but the conditions of this grant require us to
Right.
focus on an area. The Bester Elementary catchment is completely captured in our map, but we did expand to include some address-focused areas. So there are kids that are in other schools, but it's really focused on address. We do two things that are school-based services, which if you are a student at South High or E. Russell Hicks, regardless of your address, at no cost, there are grief and loss services from hospice, as well as substance abuse counseling from Potomac Community Services. That's through an MOU that those organizations have with those schools, and it's available during the school day as well as nearby the school. So those are the two school-based services specifically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Being that this is a 10-year plan and, it's public, everyone is aware that the South End has huge opportunity.
Yep.
It only makes sense for me to think that in the next few years, we might see a transition, or we might see an increase of folks wanting to move over to the South End. And I guess the question I really have for you is, with the citizens that are going to be trying to make that transition from being renters to owners, do you think that there's going to be some type of limitation or cap somewhere along the years, like the 5-7 year mark, that might say you would had to have been a resident in the South End within the last 7 to 10 years to qualify?
Yeah,
Do you see anything?
It's an interesting question
Okay.
in the long term.
Right.
In the short term, our initial focus is existing residents. It's only natural that at a certain point that will expand to include a more vibrant community that people from outside want to join. There's nothing wrong with this being a destination
Oh,
for
right.
families, right?
Definitely.
That more families want to raise their kids in the South End because there's great opportunities there. What we're being cautious of is that the South End, who is getting an opportunity to break a cycle of poverty, does not become the place that everyone sends social challenges to. So it's for the residents that are there, not a place that everyone should hear, oh, well, there's resources here now. Let's send all of the challenges that exist across the city to the south end. That's not going to be an effective way to bring about change. So I think in the long term, it would be wonderful if people from outside the south end want to think about, or even from outside the city, want to think about relocating to the south end and raising their family there. That's only going to help to have vested long-term community stakeholders. But our focus is to ensure that we're not gentrifying the people that are there. I don't want to do something that's intended as good by pushing people that are part of that community out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Keith, can you explain one more time how you want to partner with the city hire?
Yeah, so
Sorry,
I think that there's room to flesh it out together. I think that for the purposes of planting a seed with the city, we don't have to decide this month, next month, or the following. But at the beginning of next year, I would like to consider hiring a staff member. Does not have to be a city staff, but I think that there's a lot of room for us to explore together a logical partnership in that way. I think the biggest risk factor for the city to explore is the long-term funding of the Enough Act and hiring that staff member. And what if for some reason the funding was not available for that staff member in the long term? I think that what I would argue is that if we have 150 new homeowners, there may be a tax base to justify that new staff member. But I think there's room for a dialogue is what I'm hoping for there.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
This isn't a question. Probably just a simple statement. I'm looking at Scott when I say this. And I apologize, I had to step out for a moment. But I think that, at least for me, for the tenure that I've had on this council, one of the things that has stuck out over time in, we'll call it the Bester School District, is that it has hovered around 10 to 15% homeownership. I think that's the lowest of all of the, we'll call it, districts, precincts, voting, whatever you want to call it, in the city. And so that seems to be a bit of the crux of the issue that is attempting to be addressed, right? But I can't help, and I can't help but reflect on the fact that I grew up. I lived on Maryland Avenue, Pine Street, Summit, Howard, Guilford, Virginia Avenue, Highland Way. I think I lived probably 16 different places, right? In my time as a kid that grew up in the South End. And so I just don't want our presentation and conversation today to reflect an atmosphere in the South End that I certainly don't remember as a kid. Growing up there, while there certainly was and were and are those issues of an absence of affluency, it was a pretty good growing up experience in the South End. One of my time there, little crime, as you know, I live in the most southerly house in the city currently, so you can't get more south than I guess than that. But I just, I've lived in that house for 20 years and I just don't, I don't see those things. I get we're addressing the social issues. I just want to make sure that as we go through this process, we're addressing things like home ownership and those that aren't issues that we would otherwise associate being poor with being bad. So just my 2 cents.
No disagreement. And we're not anti-renter in any way. I think it's a vehicle for prosperity for families to build wealth through homeownership. That's what we hope, is that families that want to think about their long-term strategy to be stable and strong is how homeownership is a part of that story.
I think that one of the things that is helpful in that effort, and I'll just use my personal example, there's a property that came for sale, directly in the block that I live in. So, I purchased it. It was not, in good condition. It was 2 apartments at one time. It was a single family turned into 2 apartments. And so the goal was to turn it back into a single family home and sell it in that manner. So I know that we've had that discussion probably 15 years ago, where we said, you know, you're not going to build that back into a neighborhood if you keep allowing places to be, you know, bought, cut up, carved up, and into multiple apartments, because you lose the opportunity for folks to go into those neighborhoods and buy them as single-family homes. So I think that our efforts at this table have to be in concert with, you know what I mean? If you've got folks that want to find homes to buy, we need to make sure that the homes
Yeah, it's a
that are
balanced
there
approach
remain,
for us.
you
For
know,
us, it's
that are there
balanced,
to
right?
buy.
It's a both and, the same way we're providing lots of direct services to families in crisis, because there are plenty of those families struggling in the South End. But we want to balance meeting immediate needs with an eye on the future of sustainability. So it's both.
And the South End's bought certainly into the Bester Community of Hope model, because I know pretty much every meeting that's held, there are 40 to 50 people there.
Yeah.
Representing South End families. I mean, I'm still there. I've been there for almost 40 years now. And my kids went through the South End School District, Bester, Hicks, and South High. I couldn't think of a better place for that to have happened, and I still feel that way, knowing as many as we know in the South End. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this. It really is energizing to see what Keith and Jen and the group have done to get this going. It's going to be a great project.
And we're going to need the city. We're going to need you at this stage as we move from the vision to the implementation side. As we're now at that time where it's time that you're hearing me say we're bringing significant funds, significant investment, and we need you to help us clear the way to make those things happen. So I appreciate your support in advance.
And one last thing, Keith.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, because I did overhear this. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was 13 years in the making?
So for about 10 years, so Sanmar, it's a longer story, but we got a time schedule here. So
Okay.
for a couple years, Sanmar was actively involved with exploring with the county what the best place that we could invest to prevent kids and families from being impacted by systems of care. The Bester neighborhood was identified. There was a lot of momentum there. And for about 10 years, we've partnered with DHS to provide family services in a voluntary way. We have a team of staff that work with families on a voluntary basis to prevent further harm, to prevent further impact. That's not enough. We need to do more to serve not just the child outcomes, not just the family outcomes, but the neighborhood outcomes. And I think over our history of the past decade, it's less visible to the general public how much significant impact we've had, because it's one child at a time, one family at a time. And our vision is the neighborhood, that you could drive through it and you can start feeling it and seeing it. That's our hope.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thanks, guys. Yep.
Thank you, Keith.
All right. Next up on the agenda, we'll have Wheaton Park Stage reallocation of community development block grant. Jim Bender and Margie Joe. For those out there that the legislative up next, we're going to wait till pretty close to 4 o'clock when Delegate Schindler can be here.
So, good afternoon. As part of the improvement plan for Wheaton Park, a master plan was developed for the park, and there were 2 phases of improvements that were identified. The first phase has been pretty much completed, and that was the construction of a misting pad and a parking lot and some other amenities in that area. Staff's been working on trying to implement the second phase of those improvements, and the main item that's in the second phase is the construction of a new stage or band shell at the site. And so we put together plans for that stage. We put them out to bid earlier this spring. We only received 1 bid, and the bid was about 4 to 5 times higher than we thought the project was going to cost. So we sort of regrouped, revised the plans a little bit, put it back out to bid, and at least this time we got more response. We had 11 contractors bid on the project. Unfortunately, the low bidder out of those 11, they still at a price that was more than the funding that was available. We had, between carryover funding from FY25 and what was allocated in the FY26 budget, we had about $100,000 to do this project. The low bid was $196,000, so we're just about $100,000 short. So knowing that this is a priority project for the council, to continue to flush out the master plan at Wheaton Park, what staff is suggesting is that we can make up that gap in funding by reallocating CDBG funding from another CIP into this project. And so what we would propose is, in the FY26 budget, there was an alley reconstruction CIP that had $100,000 worth of CDBG funding attached to it. What we would suggest is that we reallocate that $100,000 from the alley reconstruction to Wheaton Park, and then we would backfill that funding using highway user revenue from, that we had allocated either for pavement preservation or other improvement projects. And Margie's here, and she can speak to, if the council wants to move in this direction, we have a couple, I don't want to say hoops that we have to jump through, but there's some procedural things that we need to do.
A lot of it's more timing issue. We have just submitted our annual action plan for FY26. That was submitted on, I believe it's August 14th, but HUD has up to 45 days to come back and tell us that yes, you're good to go. So until they've actually approved, the action plan is submitted with the alley-based funding allocated where it is, we kind of have to sit and wait for them to tell us you're good to go so that we can turn around and say, okay, we need to change. And there, with this would be considered a substantial amendment under CDBG guidelines. So it would require a 30-day public comment period. We're aiming for the soonest date that we can get that out to the public. Essentially, we just publish our proposed amendment and invite the public to come forth with any comment that's relevant. As soon as that public comment period is over, we would submit the amendment to HUD. Odds are there would not be really any pushback, but then it would just be a matter of waiting for them to come back and then say, yes, you're good to go with the amendment. So.
What was the item that pushed it over? I mean, you got the engineered cost estimate breakdown. I'm just curious.
To be honest, we're still not sure. And talking to the contractors, there were a couple contractors that, actually one that was doing work here at City Hall, and they bid on the project, and we asked them, we're not seeing where your pricing is. We weren't expecting this from them, and they said it's a number of factors. Part of it is uncertainty with, the whole tariff situation right now. Part of it is, we've seen it in other projects where construction costs are just elevated right now for various reasons. So we weren't expecting this, but it's not, what we've seen lately, it's not totally shocking that the prices were higher than we estimated.
So you have not finalized on this last bid offer, correct? It's not
No,
finalized.
we have not, and I don't think that we're not allowed to execute that contract, at least until the action plan is approved, because we're going to be using money that's in the action plan, approved in the action plan. So depending on how quickly HUD moves, I think is going to dictate how soon we would execute this contract.
Anyone else?
What is the alley construction?
So every year, the city has a program where we go out and reconstruct concrete alleys at various places in town. We have a list of alleys that are in need of repair, and we just try to work through that list on a priority basis. I guess the thing that could save us here is that alley construction is eligible to use highway user revenue on, because it's related to vehicles, it's related to roadways or places. We can't use highway user revenue to do the stage at Wheaton Park, because that's not really a highway use or a park use.
So I guess I'm asking that because it's opposed to in addition to the stage, then you also have the funding to possibly redo the alley behind.
Yeah, not just, not just there. Actually, we're doing some improvements on that alley close to Wheaton Park right now. There are a list of alleys that we would like to construct. It's something that we're going to have to sit down if the council decides to move this way. How many alleys can we do with the highway user revenue, and what impact would that have on the street repaving that we normally do?
Anything else?
How long do you think it would take to get our money back?
Well, once the plan's approved, we can just move forward with executing the contract. HUD, we get our money from HUD on a reimbursement basis. So essentially, we reach out with a report to them every month and say, here's what we spent in these different activities, and then they just they reimburse the city. So as soon as the plan is approved for any activity that we put out there, we can begin spending against it.
So what size is this structure?
It's 18 by 24 is
And is it prefab or is it like built on spec?
it's built on spec. It's not prefab.
Is there a reason we went with something that's not prefab? You know, like a packaged product you buy and we've done pavilions in my where you buy it, you know, and you unroll it and put it up.
I think that part of it was just thinking about the aesthetic that we were trying to deliver to the park, instead of just sort of a utilitarian stage, which was kind of what a lot of those prefab things look like. I think we're hoping that this is going to have a little bit more character.
You said it's an 18 by 20?
18 by 24.
Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see.
All right. Next up, purchase agreement for 149 North Potomac Street. We have Mr. Doug Reaser.
Good evening. So before you, I have a contract of sale and inspection agreement for the city's acquisition of 149 North Potomac Street from Mike Fitzgerald of 149 North Potomac LLC. Some key business points of the contract of sale include a purchase price of $2.5 million and a study period of 60 days. The inspection agreement will actually be back before you later this evening in special session. This would allow the city to begin the review of the property and begin the 60-day study period in advance of the effective date of the purchase agreement. The goal of the property acquisition is to stabilize the property and return it to the private sector for highest and best use as a tax contributing property. The documents before you were developed with the city attorney. The owner has reviewed the documents and is in agreement with the terms and conditions subject to mayor and council's approval. In the packet is the contract of sale, the inspection agreement, as well as the motion and the ordinance for the property acquisition.
I think I can tell, at least a little bit maybe on the look on Paul's face back there in the crowd, that our use of the address rather than the common reference of the building, that 149 refers to the YMCA, right?
That's correct.
And I think that, you know, this will likely, after this meeting, come at least to some surprise to the public that the city is venturing down this path of possibly purchasing the old YMCA for some, as you put it, higher and better use. And here's the reality, and I've said this in the settings and conversations that I've had with individual members of council, mayor, county, other parties. You know, everybody drives by that building. Everybody's driven by that building for the last 20 years. And everybody says, you know, something has to happen with that building, this great, big, huge building downtown. And I will give Mr. Fitzgerald credit. He did what nobody else was willing to do. And that was go get it and wrest it out of the hands of parties that held it at that time that were doing nothing with it, and the parties before that that did nothing with it. And he has certainly, come forth willingly and lended his opportunity for us to secure the building so that somebody can finally do something with it. And there isn't a person that is from this community that doesn't have some positive, fond memory of being in that building in some activity level. And for us, as government that has the opportunity to do something with it, to allow it to sit and continue to sit and do nothing, I just want to applaud the mayor and council and staff for pursuing this with Mike. And if the opportunity fails at the end of the day, our objective has still been accomplished, that we look at it and say, you know what, just like other large buildings where private development just doesn't have the capacity to grab this and fix it up and put it back in good order and productive use, government does have that ability, and hopefully, we will secure ownership of the property. It is absolutely my objective that we not remain owners of the property in any extended period. I'm looking back at Eric because he's like, please, we don't want to own that, right, any longer than we have to. But we have access to financial opportunities with other governmental entities that private developers simply aren't going to have for a building of this magnitude where it is currently situated. And so, I think that at the end of the day, our objective should be to do exactly as you've said, identify a way to put this in as best we are able back into the positive, productive hands of some private party in the highest and best use possible as quickly as we're able. That's my objective.
So,
Yeah, and part of the ordinance processes would be listing it, after acquisition would be complete, would be listing in our competitive negotiated sale list and making this available for private developers to put offers in.
just so everybody knows out, that's listening, go ahead and explain highest and best use.
It's capital investment into this property. So that could be a mixed-use development at the end of the day. It could be completely residential, be completely commercial. It just depends on what is being proposed by a developer. Likely, in my best guess, would probably be a mixed-use type building and redevelopment.
And I want the public to understand this a little bit, because I know what's going to happen after a meeting like this, right? And this information is now out in this sort of public thought atmosphere, right? Folks are going to say, wow, $2.5 million, the city's going to try and buy this property, right? And what I would say to the public is this: even if, and don't get me wrong, there are a multitude of buildings downtown that local government, that county government, that state government has bought over time and lost initial funding on for that greater investment opportunity after that initial purchase. I can name half a dozen just off the top of my head. But here's the reality. Even if we were to put this under CNS, competitive negotiated sale, after this process, and even at the end of the day, let's say somebody comes in and says, we're going to give you $1.5 million for this property, and we're going to invest $15 million into it, right? What that would say to me as a taxpayer is, okay, we lost $1 million, $300,000 is roughly the average penny, right? And the average penny is roughly about $13 to $15 on your tax rate. And I can look at that as a taxpayer and say, the city just cost me $45 in 1 year of my tax bill to obtain this property, lose money on it, and put it back in productive use and back on the tax rolls, and have somebody put the amount of money in it that it's going to take to make that happen. And so I just think that we should remain aware of that as we work through this process.
Anyone else?
Okay, so this will be coming back next week in the intro of the ordinance, and then the approval will be the following week thereafter.
Next up.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go back to this discussion of legislative priorities with Senator Paul Corderman, Delegate Matt Schindler, and Annaston Cree is representing April Delaney's office. Another chair for. Yeah. Here you go.
Let's pull a seat.
I'm sorry.
Caught me off guard on that one.
Is that last item, Mike, you want to change what we're talking about today?
No, I think it's a good segue. It's a great segue, actually. I had not seen that one yet. Interesting. I'll leave it at that for right now. Oh,
Who wants to lead it? Ed?
what do you want to do here?
I think just starting out, the body has met last month and just talk through some of the priorities and options for legislation that staff have developed through the various departments. There were two priorities from last session that worked real hard on. One was the express consent for annexation. Delegate, I think,
You had both.
correct me if I'm wrong, it did get through the House side, or no, that's body cam.
Not for.
Express
annexation.
consent did not get out of committee,
Correct.
and for good reason. But it has gained some interest, I know, across the state. And although not being a priority with MML this year due to a procedural guideline that you cannot present 3 times in a row, something for a priority. I know there is interest in a wide section of the state to look into this more. So this could perhaps be something more in a statewide bill that we'd be looking for sponsors to help out on. The body cam bill for body cam for enforcement officers, including code and parking, that made it out of the House.
It did pass through the House.
It passed through the House, got hung up in the Senate, and again, I think pretty good reason. First time that bill was introduced, there were some concerns about how that would be, how the enforcement side would go. I think we'll need to do a better job of saying that the same guidelines will stick for this bill as it did for the bill on the camera side for law enforcement officers. I think if we do that, I think that would be a better way to approach it, at least from our standpoint, and see how you guys can run with that. Sure. But the argument definitely made sense from that perspective. There are some other.
Scott, real quick, I don't mean to cut you off, but just a quick question on those two items there.
Yep.
Delegate, you had both those last year, correct?
I did, yes.
And I believe, were they statewide bills last year?
They were.
Is that still the same process? You want to do statewide, or are you looking to do this local as
That'll be
delegation? bills?
statewide.
Statewide, okay.
Yes.
Appreciate the clarification.
And you are interested in pursuing both of those again?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I didn't get any indication that you weren't, that the body was not.
Right.
Okay, so we're good, okay. Other bills that were out there, there are several bills here that I think we would be good, maybe if you could have staff or even DLS get back with me on as far as what the current legislative capabilities are now, as far as it relates to sober homes in Maryland, property management companies that operate in Maryland. Those were the two big ones that I know there were bills floating around down there the last couple of years, but I'm not sure where any of that ended up without going in and trying to go through that minutia that probably DLS would be able to tell you in an email. But it was a suggestion that we are looking at whether it be through state or whether the council would like to take this up on a local level, more requirements placed on sober home certification. as well as property management requirements, so where there'd be certification and some kind of accountability related to how property management companies operate in the city. Again, I think these are great statewide bills because we all suffer some of the consequences that come with some of that activity. The other one would be, as far as the Hagerstown Fieldhouse is concerned, making it exempt from all personal and real property taxes for both city and county. Right now, their tax bill is about $350,000 to $400,000 for both of us, and we'd like to see that accommodation made, just as it's been made for other entities that operate out of a government-owned facility. The stadiums are a perfect example of that. And that would be a local, that would be a local delegation bill. The others that are on here, I can tell you from a statewide perspective, the tax differential discussion is going to come back up again related to making all counties shall counties, which means they shall provide to all municipalities the current state of the tax differential, as well as what that differential is used against or used as a credit to the municipality based upon the duplication of services. That will be part of a effort that MML is going to take on as a way to look at how revenue is allocated to municipalities. The other would be the admissions and amusement tax on all food and beverage sales. That got shot down last year, but MML, the committee, again brought it up as a way to add the opportunity for municipalities to raise revenues other than through personal and real property taxes, which right now is the only way we can do that as a municipality. We also have been talking with the Maryland Historical Society about their either relocation or acquisition of downtown space to enhance their footprint. That has not been finalized. I don't know if that'll be something that would look into a bond bill this year. But that was something that they came to council, and we kind of took that ball and had additional conversations with them, and they have showed some interest. I don't think it's going to be ready for this legislative year, but it might be for the next one. And that's pretty much the list. And I'm not sure which of these yet will go to the community coalition. I'm fairly confident that the tax exemption for the field house will go to the coalition, and potentially the body cam for the enforcement officers go to the coalition. But being that certainly the body cams is a statewide bill, I don't know if the coalition really wants to get into statewide matters, so we're going to want to keep it local delegation focused. That's all I had, Mayor. If anybody and the rest of you have anything you want to add.
I just had a question about the property management. Is that kind of like what we discussed in a previous meeting, just about certain things that they have to abide by?
Yes.
As far as like rent caps and, okay, I just wanted to make sure that was.
And one more I forgot on here was the public identification of principals and LLC filings for business licenses. That has gotten shot down several times in the past. Just something to look at. That would again be a statewide bill. But I can tell you that when we try to, as a municipality, to look for principles of properties that are owned, that we have code enforcement issues with or utilities issues with, it can be a very difficult process to try to figure out who to contact if there's no resident agent associated with it, which many are. And you'll have, the same person or group of people with 25 or 30 LLCs, and they'll name it 123 Main Street LLC, 234 Main Street LLC. and it's very hard to find out who those people are. This would not be, at least in my mind, a punitive bill to where we found you, now we're coming after you. It would really be good to just have that information available. Should something need done with the property, or there be an issue with the property, we can find who to talk to through the LLC filings. Right now, you can't see that. And I know Keith will have an interest in that as we move forward with enough, and also with the choice neighborhood, just trying to find out someone to talk to about a property. And again, that's another state, that's not a local delegation. The only true local delegation bill on here, if you take away the bond bill, would be the tax exemption for the Hagerstown Fieldhouse. And I know, and you guys might want to expand on it. I tried to explain to the council what I had heard as far as the budget for next year. We know the budget for next year is not really the big concern. The 28 budget, I think, is going to be the one that's going to be a problem. But we also have been told that as far as capital money is going to be tight. And anyone thinks they're going to come in and look for 10, 50, $100 million in a bond bill, probably are not going to get a good result out of that, which is why if there is anything that we would think of as staff perspective to bring to you, it's definitely would be on a lower, we're looking $1 million or less when it comes to any state assistance that we could get, because we know that there's just not that money available out there. So if you would, if you'd let us know your thoughts, certainly about the upcoming session.
Sure. You want to go? So first off, thank you. First for inviting us in to have this conversation, because I think as we were here last time, it's important that we gather here at this table to have these conversations in a transparent manner for the public to see and for us all to kind of work through these issues. Only speaking for myself, I'm sure Delegate Schindler will add to this, but my objective here and goal is to find shared priorities. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. But to find the opportunities there is that we do agree on and can work together collaboratively to provide those successes, obviously, to our community. The thing that Councilman Alshire was just talking about before I stepped up, that's probably not a shared priority, at least just speaking for myself, as far as how that goes in the future with the acquisition of that property. But that's okay. That's something that you guys want to, invest and look at. That's obviously within your purview. But that being said, again, looking at some of these things, trying to find things that, again, that we can coalesce around together and collaborate to find that success together. Before I get into those, I just want to bring up one quick thing. I know that we kind of some previous conversations at this table before in regards to what I led off there before about transparency and conversation and having these things in the public and for the public to be able to see. I think it's very important. I know Councilman Alshire has spoken about it many times in length before. And basically what I'm going with this is last year, we had the conversations in regards to the community and what those things look like. I wrote the infamous letter that was received in multiple different ways, and there were some meetings that were held in this body, and there were some meetings that we held also. And I think what it needs to be brought to the attention of the public, and the only reason I bring this up is I think there will be discussions in that setting that could lead to some legislation, some legislative updates that we're going to be doing. So I think it's important for the community to be aware that those conversations are happening. And I hopeful and would ask that the city work with the county to make sure those conversations going forward are live streamed for the community to be able to see, because I think that's important as we have those conversations that the community is engaged as well. I thought it was a great conversation we had a few weeks ago, a lot of discussion there. I would just ask as we go forward that is a transparent process for the public to see, again, because I think some of these things we're talking about today and will come out of those meetings, there'll be some legislative things as well. I know one, for example, that was discussed, we talked about truancy. And Delegate Schindler and I just had a conversation with a constituent just, was it yesterday or the day before? In regards to a truancy bill that we're going to bring to that conversation. So I just want to bring that up in this forum because this is the open forum that we have right now and would suggest and encourage that going forward. That being said, I'll leave that part alone. Back to kind of our legislative update. Before I go through this list here, I didn't know if you could provide, Scott, any update on some of the previous operating grants we've gotten. So the last year, Delegate Schindler, when he first came in, they gave $250,000 to, I guess, for a study for the public safety building, which would be potentially maybe a new police station. And the year before, there was $250,000 operating grant for a water study. Can you give an update on either one of those, where we're at with those?
The one on the water study has already been RFP developed. and I believe it's on the street. The one for the 250,000 for the public safety, we're still working through the grant process with General Services.
Okay. I'm glad to hear the water thing is moving forward. Let me ask, has the county been involved in that conversation?
They have not, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
With that.
I would just encourage that
We just
conversation.
recently got the
It's-
DGS
Right.
approval.
No, and believe me, we both know, and
You will, yeah.
our folks back behind us know that the challenge that DGS can present during that process. But I just want to make sure those things were ongoing, because I know a challenge for both Delegate Schindler and I sometimes is DGS aside of getting grant money awarded to a particular project community, and then it's not acted on. And then sometimes we go back downstate and they're like, all right, well, we gave you X, Y, and Z. What are you doing with it? So I appreciate that update. And again, on the water thing, please conversate with the county. I know that's a touchy subject in our community, but I think the only way we're going to get through that is not just with the conversations we're having today, but to have those same type of conversations with the county. And good to hear about the public safety building also. In regards to these things, I guess the first one right off the top of the list, the field house. Obviously, I'm very aware of tax exempt process with the ballpark, as you guys are all aware. We went through that process last year, and I guess my first question, let me be very upfront. I have no issue with it, okay? I think that building should be tax exempt. I guess my question is, why is it not tax exempt in the first place? Doesn't the city own the field house?
City owns the field house, but the use, it's being leased to a for-profit company, which makes that company the entity that gets taxed,
Okay.
not us. That's why you have to go through and get that exemption, just like Bowie did, just like any of the other Ripken Stadium, all those had to go through that same process.
Okay, and I was unaware they had an exemption. My understanding from that process going through Meredith Park, that ballpark, was because they were owned by government, they were automatically exempted. But if you're saying if they had to get a special exemption, that's fine. We won't get in the weeds there. I have no issue with it. I guess my suggestion with that going forward, because the field house is already open, and it's a conversation we're continuing to have with the ballpark, both those facilities, if we can agree here, should be exempt from the day they open going forward. Because there has been conversation still with the ballpark while we passed that legislation last year. There was conversation, obviously, at this table. Was that something that was going to be revisited? I know the finance director brought it up again during your budget conversations. Was that something you want to look at again? And basically, I guess what I'm getting at is we need to have an understanding and agreement going forward. If we're doing this for these facilities, which I'm totally fine for, let's all be in agreement that we're doing for both facilities from the day they both open, moving forward. So I guess that's kind of my conversation piece back to this body. And if anyone wants to speak to that, I'm open to that conversation. If everyone's good with it, I'm fine with that too. So I just want to put that out there first.
We're good with it.
Okay,
Are
excellent.
you asking if we're good with the facilities being tax exempt? Yeah, I don't believe either one should.
Okay. Well, that'll be something between, I guess, the five of you to figure out as far as what the majority has to feel on that. The only reason I brought that up, Councilman Sharp, because it was on this list of priorities. I had assumed, maybe incorrectly so, that these were shared priorities by this body already. Maybe they hadn't been fully vetted, and if that was not the case, and my mistake, but maybe there's some more work you guys need to do internally on that. But I guess my whole point is, if we're going to exempt these, which I think they should be, let's do it for all and be done with it and move forward. I think that's probably the best thing for the community. Some of the other ones, again, some of them, I'm sure that we can find some shared, interest in. Sober houses, Scott, we've talked about that one for a number of years. I know when Delegate Grossman was here, we looked at that a number of times. I'm all in to trying to figure that out. So whatever I can do to help on that, and that would let you kind of speak to some of these also here in a minute. But again, just in a matter of transparency, the LLC, I get what you're saying, Scott. I understand it. The reality of that passing, I don't think is very probable. That doesn't mean that you should never do something because it's not probable, because Lord knows in this political arena that I work in, very much so in the state, a lot of things that I believe in probably aren't going to pass in the state. However, when you look at the LLCs, how they're handed across the country, I did a quick cursory research the other night. I think it was California and maybe New York had the most lenient, I guess you would call, LLCs. And even those still had some guardrails on them. I think that is the purpose of LLCs. And I'm just speaking for myself. So that's probably something that my office would not be interested in. But if Delegate Schindler is interested in that, obviously moving forward. The stuff with the county, again, the Shell County, you want to do a state thing? I mean, I have to imagine when you talk about the coalition, where's the county on with that one? I'm sure that's going to be. Right.
Like every other county in the state.
Yeah. And so I think that's going to prevent some challenges of
It's not a Shell County already. There are those. that-
No, I understand that. I guess where I'm getting at, what I was told, what I've learned, and I was put out there of, when we go to Annapolis, you never want to give them a reason why to say no. And if we're infighting within our own community, our city, our county, our municipality, the county, or a particular matter, that sometimes is just easy for them to say no. And so I don't disagree with the premise behind it. I do think that there should be a conversation, again, as multiple of these other things we've talked about, probably with the county first, to see if there's any type of opportunity to find some sort of shared agreement or understanding. And maybe that's something on a higher level between MML and MACO, because if you're looking at statewide, but knowing that we had that kind of local discourse already, I think that's going to put at least myself, I can say, I don't want to speak for Delegate Schindler, in a tough situation to try to go down and advocate for something when we don't have kind of, our own people, as my predecessor used to say.
Well, I
singing
think
from the same
I
sheet of
think you'll
music.
find that there are more, especially on the Eastern Shore, that are more amenable to having this discussion. Whether it is something that, the center of the state will want to try to talk about is a different story. But I do know that certainly in Kent County, in Talbot, and in Wacomico, this is a major issue for them as well. So
Sure.
it's not just us.
No, and I know it's a statewide issue, and I get that. I just think it's part of the challenge, again, from as introducing legislation from an individual perspective of our office. Again, if our county and municipality are at odds walking in the door, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not saying don't abandon the idea, but that might be something that might not be best for our offices. Again, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe a locality or community that has a more of a shared synergy on that than what we have currently, if that makes sense. The bond bill situation for the historical society, that's new to me. Can you elaborate on that? What's that all
Just-
about? I know you said it might not happen, but I haven't heard.
They're looking for additional space. They want to utilize the garage in the back of
They're
the
right up the street
facility.
here now, right?
They're at the Miller House.
Yeah.
Now with the opportunities for like the Discovery Station building, we've just been trying to, talk with them about other opportunities they might have to where, instead of using a garage, you could expand even more if you had a bigger space.
Right.
That's all. And these are truly just discussion.
No, I get it. That's first I saw it, and I guess where does the city come into that process with them as far as, it's the way I read this, it's almost like the city's advocating for a bond bill for the Historical Society. I've not heard from the Historical Society of you. And I'm not saying they don't need it, but I think it'd be best if that we have a conversation with them
We're just
also.
trying to help.
Sure. No, I get that. And I didn't know
Yep.
if it was a larger conversation that maybe I'd missed out on.
Not even,
Again, full transparency, I'm for it. That's all about,
Yeah,
I'm all
not
about
even
the
there
Historical Society, what we do to help. Just was unaware of that.
I'm not even sure they brought it up to their board yet.
To their board yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else here. I think I've gone through pretty much all of them. Emissions and amusement tax bill, I believe you co-sponsored that one last year. I can just tell you from our office, won't be interested in that. And I think that was the last one. So, again, looking to find shared priorities. I think there are some things here that I know that we can work on together. Appreciate the opportunity, obviously, to be here and have these conversations in a transparent setting. And obviously, all ears to any questions on my end. I know Delegate Schindler may want to add some things, and she may as well. Yep, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Councilmember. Just one quick thing.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were talking about in the beginning of the discussions that were had last year. We did get a communication from Delegate Pakovich Carr regarding the nuisance bill and the fact that the House, that the body did approve a modification that would not allow for enforcement
For qualifying
of calls
calls.
for service.
Calls, yeah.
For calls for service. We are aware of that.
I am aware of that.
I can tell you that it is in our ordinance, but it has not been acted upon yet, so we would not be in any violation of anything. But it certainly goes back to address what you had mentioned as far as our ability to identify and enforce those type of properties as a, drug-free housing kind of thing, that it definitely impairs our ability to do that.
That does, and I saw that communication as well. I guess a couple of different layers. That one, Delegate Palovich Carr is a good friend of mine. I appreciate her ambition. I don't typically reach out to Montgomery County and ask them how they're doing their things down there, but I appreciate it because it was her bill, I guess, reaching out to other municipalities across the state. At the same time, she did provide some suggestions of remedies that other communities are doing, as far as looking at basically, arrests, I think was one of them. And so I think there are other opportunities to maybe, I'll say, strengthen that ordinance.
And we're going to bring that back to the body,
yeah.
I believe, in October.
Because I guess my suggestion would be don't abandon that ordinance.
Yeah.
Just because of that legislation. If anything, I would dig into it maybe a little deeper, to, obviously, one, bring into compliance. We want to make sure we're compliant with new legislation that's passed in the state. But also there's probably other things that haven't been thought about, or maybe weren't even issues when that first got enacted years ago and can be added to, because, I'm a firm believer. And again, thank you to what this body has been doing so far, as far as, taking a step, to look at some ordinances in the community, that we will hope will make the community a better place. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Scott. My last thing I'll say again would be don't abandon that, but let's work together to strengthen it, make it even more impactful, so that the can be utilized in an impactful way for the community. So, Dr. Schindler, sorry about that.
Oh, can I just say something?
Oh,
Sorry, Delegate.
sorry about that.
Just for, if we could have a really quick clarification on what certifications and registration are we asking for the sober houses to have?
I think just right now, pretty much you can just have a house and say, I'm a sober house, and apply for whatever kind of funding. We're just looking for what the gentleman came in from Frederick. We actually have a copy of that back the previous administration when the council was meeting about what Frederick County, I think, is doing as far as requiring more information from those wanting to operate sober homes to understand better how they're operating and where they're getting their funding from. Just as a way to better understand and to really also not just allow these types of houses just to pop up like weeds all over the place, which in some places that's what happens. It's not fair. It's not fair to those that are taking part and looking to those sober homes to get help, but it's also not fair to the community either, that these reside in, just have these popping up. I think the concern would be more towards if I'm going to open a sober home, I need to have qualified staff in a qualified setting in a place that's going to help those people that I am going to serve. And right now, there is not a way to do that on a statewide level.
Yeah, I think, Councilmember, to answer the question is, I think that's what we're what we're trying to figure out. Like, what would you want to have in there?
Right.
I don't know from our last discussion, Scott, I remember when we looked at this with Delegate Grossman before, of trying to, again, in the spirit of not trying to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, if we ever found anything in other states that had something similar or not, do you recall? I don't even recall if we ever got that far.
The guy from the group from Frederick.
Okay, I'm familiar with that.
I can't remember the name of them off the top. I've got it in the office.
Yeah, but that was a local
were there.
Frederick city ordinance, correct?
That was a local
Yeah.
ordinance, right?
So we're looking to try and see if there's anything that has been introduced at the state level.
That's correct.
But
So-
maybe it could be mirrored potentially around that.
Right.
It's always helpful to have something.
Before we reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we looking at him, the guy from Frederick, as like a model?
It could be.
Okay.
Yep. Could be.
Or maybe just an example,
Next
you know,
week or the week
Example.
and find a couple different examples and tailor something that's, beneficial, obviously, to our
I'm
community.
all in for plagiarizing what other people do.
And palatable
If it
across
works.
the state.
Yeah, if it works.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have my staff do some searching as far as what ordinances are out there statewide for other states, or even that have been proposed in the state of Maryland previously regarding sober homes and also rental management companies. So I have note of that. We'll definitely circle back on that with some information for you guys. And I'll get with the senator's office as well with that, and we'll compare notes. One thing the senator mentioned I do want to reiterate is I did take both the body-worn camera bill and the express consent bill last year. The express consent bill didn't go anywhere, and it really, from the committee, it just looked like a local dispute. Because, we came in, we had witnesses, we made our case, and the county came in direct opposition, and they were the only sets of witnesses. It's looked like the city versus the county. So if we really want any chance of that going anywhere, as a statewide bill, we have to involve other municipalities, or it's really just going to look like a local dispute. And that was pretty much reiterated to me, is that unless we can, that's really not going to go anywhere. The body worn cameras, the Judiciary Committee really did some work to get that massaged in a way that it could get through the House. Unfortunately, it didn't get through the Senate this year. I think we just really ran out of time. But if you guys are interested, we'll take that up again. And, hopefully we'll have some more luck this year getting that through the Senate as well. We'll get it filed earlier. And
I appreciate the work. You were hamstrung. I mean, what, 2 weeks before session started? You were hamstrung. So I
Yeah.
appreciate both of you that took on some of these things. But I know you were especially hamstrung.
no chance to pre-file anything last
Right,
year. But,
right.
we're going to try and pre-file as much as we can this year. As the senator mentioned, we had a nice conversation yesterday with a constituent in regards to a lot of these conversations where I'm with truancy and mental health and substance abuse, to try to close some of those gaps that people are falling through, especially children, when it comes to homelessness and truancy in schools. So we're going to see what we can do there to get some legislation drafted up. The field house, absolutely full support here with that. Try to get that going through. If that admissions and amusement, is that something that's going to be, so it's an MML priority again?
That's an MML priority
Okay.
again.
Okay. I assume that that'll come before us again, so.
Yeah, not
keep an
to
eye out.
interrupt here real quick, but I think it is important as we're having this conversation to talk about what that is, okay? And so it's under the admissions and amusement tax.
No, don't do that.
Admission and amusement tax article, because that allows the locals to have the ability to do it. But what was proposed was an additional 3% tax that municipalities could then.
Up to a 3%.
Up to 3%, municipalities could impose, not just on admission and amusement tax entities, any type of entity really, as far as restaurants, bars, theater. I mean, it's all kinds of things. And so I think it's important to have that conversation here as the public's listening of when we're just saying, admission and amusement tax, well, what is that? And it wasn't just this community, it was an MML priority, like you said. I think it was our number one priority last year. And it kind of went away and it kind of came back at the very end during the session. But it would be an additional 3% tax on top of your 6% sales tax, on top of your 9% alcohol tax. And so that's, our office would not be supporting that.
It started out small.
Right.
It got out of hand.
Right.
That's me saying that.
No, I don't know.
That bill got
Just-
out of hand.
just, again, spirit of transparency.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
That wasn't a city. That was.
No, it was statewide. It was MML.
Statewide
It was everybody. Yep.
But yeah, I think that covers the bills that you guys were looking at. As you come across anything else, let us know. Especially if you do hear anything, maybe not the Historical Society if they're not there yet, but if you hear anybody else that's looking for bond bills.
Sure.
I can tell you who it is. 2.5 million. We just heard before we sat down. Yeah. Oh, I know. You raised taxes last year. Take care of that.
And then really quickly, can I just add for you guys to focus on federal bills that are going to include like school expansions for infrastructure for the city of Hagerstown as well?
Say that again?
Like school expansions, can you look into any federal bills that would help with that for the city?
Annaston, do you want to touch that at all?
Yeah, I can definitely make a note and get back to you with our ledge team on that, but happy to have a further conversation with you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. As far as school construction is, I mean, I've been on the record multiple times, had multiple public conversations with the county, within our delegation, of the need for more funding for school construction in this county. We're finally starting to see some, I guess, projects in the pipeline per se, which is a good thing, because if it's not even on the piece of paper, there's no chance of it happening. I mean, there was a while there that, Scott, you remember, and I'm sure Councilman Alshire remembers too, for about 10 years, there was no, the 10-year capital plan, there was no school construction at all anywhere in the county's plan. And that's just not sustainable for any community. So I'm with you, Councilmember. Whatever we can do at the state level, obviously anything we can partner with on our federal level, I'm all for. That's an aging infrastructure that needs to be obviously addressed sooner rather than later, especially what we saw happen in, not Hagerstown, but over in Williamsport here over the summer.
And I will say, in the interim, I've been trying to meet with different organizations, and I've met with the school board and met with the county and asked about that, because we certainly, especially for high school, I mean, we're in the city at least, we're very overcrowded, as you guys know, right? I think, what, 150% at south and 125 at north?
Well, there's a bit of a misnomer about that, right? You know, we talk about school overcrowding, but here's the reality. If you look at the school system's available seat capacity, the elementary level has about 1,000 empty seats. The middle schools have about 1,000 empty seats, and the high schools have about 1,000 empty seats.
Countywide.
Countywide.
Right, it's pockets.
So
Right.
South
Lots of
High
seats in
sits there at
Hancock, Deer
124%
Spring, Cascade.
capacity, 260 kids over capacity. That's what South High is, 260. There's the reality, though. South High has 17 portables. That's more portables than all the other high schools in the county combined. Meanwhile, Williamsport High School sits there with 160 empty seats, and Boonesboro sits there with 300 empty seats at Boonesboro High School. So there's 460 empty seats.
At Clear Spring,
If Clear Springs at like 50%, if we just had the fortitude to district different areas into those different schools, I find it odd. You drive, 40, come in the east side of Funkstown, right? And you've got the new development there, and that development comes into South High. When it could go directly out 40 down Mapleville Road and be at Boonesboro in probably just the same amount of time. I just don't understand while we continue to lament that we are hamstrung by additional growth and development impacting schools, when we could simply adjust those districts to provide for that new development going to the available seats that already exist. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is I don't disagree. I think there's population density issues there. And from a high level, that's a county and a school board issue, unfortunately. But I don't disagree with what you're saying.
I agree as well.
Annaston, I got a question for you. As you know, that the city of Hagerstown passed an anti-camping ordinance. There was an executive order signed to redirect federal funding to cities that adopt this. And of course, it also said that they're going to push cities to the front of the line that had this ordinance before the executive order was signed. Can you tell me where we're at on that, or?
So I can't speak directly to that legislative process, but I can definitely get an answer
Okay.
for more clarity on that for you guys, for where you will stand.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to add one thing. So the Congresswoman is proud to be a federal partner with our state delegation, and I would just encourage the city to start looking at the FY27 community project funding priorities that you guys may have for that, and happy to have further conversations on where we can move forward with that. But I would encourage you to start having those conversations now.
The last thing I would add, I guess, with Scott, was you were saying at the beginning, as far as what the session is potentially going to look like. You're 100% right as far as the budget, the operating budget that is. There's actually a surplus right now. I mean, we'll wait till the next revenues come out here. Actually, they're coming out pretty soon. They're going to come out in September. Regardless, when the budget passed last year, it was set up to be balanced, a little bit of surplus this fiscal year as well as the next fiscal year. And just being frank here, it's because it's election year. The cliff falls off the following year. The capital budget, there'll probably still be a healthy capital budget, but again, it's being transparent. It's a political season. And so we're going into a session now, which is right in the throes of an election. I think you're going to see a lot of those capital decisions being made very politically. And I think it's just the reality of the arena that the delegate and I walk into. I think the benefit here is for our community, specifically in the city of Hagerstown, that Delegate Schindler and I truly try to work in a bipartisan manner in Annapolis, and have been successful in kind of bridging that gap and still being able to bring home resources here to our community. And I can only speak for myself, but that's my goal and intent to do this year. But I think it'll be challenging in that respect, as far as, they call it the silly season for a reason. And that's what we're heading into.
I'll echo that and just say that to the senator's point, don't be discouraged to put in requests, because I don't think that I don't think they'll be handled any differently than a typical year with those bond bill requests. So if you guys have requests, let's make sure we get them in.
Oh, yeah, we won't be shy.
Good.
Never hurts to ask.
What was the timeframe that you said the earliest that we can get?
So I think we have to have those in by, what is it, I believe the first week of February, Senator?
For like bond bills and
Yes.
things like that, yeah. The capital request, you have a little bit of time on that, but you do bring up a great question as far as we're going through this process and what other internal process you guys want to work through going through. Delegate Schindler mentioned the word earlier about pre-filing. For those that aren't familiar, we have the opportunity, the ability to pre-file legislation, which I believe is November 1st, maybe.
It is, yeah, they just.
We will have obviously our delegation day, which I think is this, I don't know if it's out there yet, but it's usually sometime the first or second week of November.
First week of
Right.
November.
So obviously anything that's going to be pre-filed or would like to be pre-filed, the sooner, this is the time. I would say anything you want to pre-file, you want to have that kind of put together by the end of October, so that can be filed. And or the other ones, definitely by the time we meet as a delegation, so to wrap up any loose ends in that, again, that public setting, so we can have those conversations and everyone's on the same page going forward. So sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And any bills that we pre-file, essentially what that means is they'll be read day one of the legislative session, and we've got a much better chance of them being heard and, going through the other side before the end of session. So
It's all a race against the clock.
It is.
So the sooner it gets in, the sooner it's heard, the more time you have then to flesh things out. As Scott said earlier on some of the other bills, things come up, things that we haven't even thought of that different communities bring up. And so you want to maximize as much time within that 90-day window as possible to give you a higher likelihood of success.
I'm going to address three items that are on our list. Well, two on the list, one that you brought up, and the first is the water study. I'm going to pair that with the first, which is the consent for annexation. First, the statement. As the city proceeds through the analysis of its water system, I am certainly open to the county and any other member of the public sitting in and listening in on how the city decides it will proceed with its system into the future. We have owned and operated a water system for 118 years, and I think that we have done so responsibly. We have never denied an applicant interested in receiving city water, that water service. And so I think that we'll be just fine in, determining how we plan to do that for another 100 years into the future. That said, when you get to the consent for annexation issue, here's the reality. We work on this archaic system designed, created, implemented by the state, where the state provides for the counties to determine the water and sewer classifications across each county in this state. But most of the counties, especially in your more rural counties, don't own any of the water or sewer systems. And so until that disconnect is addressed, I don't know that the consent for annexation thing is ever going to be resolved because let's be honest, what it's about extension of infrastructure. And so, the county will sit on the side of saying, we've got to look at the schools, and the municipalities, most of which own the water and sewer systems, are going to sit on the side of we've got to properly manage our utility infrastructure. That's the disconnect that has to be corrected. It isn't just annexation, it's the water and sewer classification process. And that's not just unique to this county because I deal with it in Frederick County as well.
Sure. But Baltimore City, they own the water, so it goes all through Baltimore County. So it's a statewide issue.
The second relates to the Shao County. I would just say this as it relates to the city of Hagerstown. You guys well know we are one of 4 municipalities in the state of Maryland left that manage and have a municipal fire department. The other 3 parties in the state that do that, Salisbury, Annapolis, and Cumberland, they do receive some level of partnering agreement or compensation or reimbursement for having that municipal service. It is not a small service. In fact, it's our second largest that we have. It takes up about 1/3 of our total tax bill. And in the last, 16 years, so 2008, when we implemented tax differential in Washington County, 12.5 cents, it has been 12.5 cents the entire time since 2008. It has never included fire service. The other three do include some form in their fire service, and our fire service has increased in cost from $7 million at that time, over 16 years, to now $14 million. We can't continue to afford to do that and then send that municipal service outside of our corporate boundaries for free. So at the end of the day, if the shall thing doesn't work, if tax differential doesn't get addressed, the only result will have to be this. Either the city stops sending that service outside of the city for customers to get it for free, or somebody else is going to have to assume responsibility
You don't have
for
a
that
municipal
service.
fire department.
So that's, there aren't a lot of other options within that equation.
No, and I don't disagree with the, I guess, any of those statements per se. I guess we'll back up to the first one with the annexation versus water. It's a leverage game. The county's leveraging what they can, the city's gonna leverage what they can. At the end of the day, though, it's the responsibility of both parties, the city, the county, actually all parties of government, city, county, state, federal, to try to work in some sort of collaborative way to work those things out. I know, look, we've been saying that for years. I think the reality is, yes, the city owns the water system. I'm not advocating for the city not to own a water system. They should own the water system. I think it's going to be a challenge, though, for the city to correct all the issues and the infrastructures and the needs with the water system by themselves. And I think the more entities that potentially you could have, a lot of the county and or the state, with some of those infrastructure needs that are going to be needed. I mean, Councilmember, I'm sure you know better than I do how much those pumps are going to cost and redoing some of those. Actually, that's a good question, actually. The reservoir. When I was on the council, we talked about resurrecting the reservoir in Edgemont. Whatever happened with that? There was
If you can get MDE to move off the dime on allowing us to reasonably and practically bring that water system back in service, the sooner that they discontinue placing roadblocks to that effort and additional costs to that effort, we can bring that system back online.
Yeah, I recall the conversation being it was $5 million to decommission it or $5 million to bring it back online. Well, that was a no-brainer, right? That was back in 2016. The last thing I recall seeing, again, you guys know better than I were, I think you got an MDE loan, I guess you became eligible for like 20-some million dollars a couple years ago.
Total current cost is about $32 million.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the 30 millions now.
And that's to add things at that infrastructure that are not necessary, absolutely not necessary to bring that source back online.
And I'm sure you and I don't disagree. Welcome to the state of Maryland. And that's just the political realities that we live in when it comes to environmental things from Department of Environment.
I don't understand a state that says the better option is to have a immediate time source versus a static source that allows you weeks of backup supply in the instant that becomes absolutely necessary.
I guess my point in all that is those costs are escalating, obviously. That's just that potentiality of whatever happened. All these costs are going to continue to increase to hundreds of millions of dollars. And I can just encouragement on my side of try to continue this dialogue and conversation with the county. Because I think you're going to need help from the county and or the state with those infrastructure programs. The ratepayers aren't going to be able to do it for it all. You know, I know that's how the system's supposed to work, the enterprise fund, but I mean, and that's just not a Hagerstown thing or state thing. I mean, infrastructure and water, I'm sure you have the same issues in Frederick County. I know you do. There's a tremendous cost with water infrastructure that we as a society have just, for whatever reason, well, another reason, because the cost, we kick the can down the road, us and every other municipality in the state, to now you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think it's going to take a shared effort. So that's all I add to that.
The county's in agreement with us on the Edgemont thing. And for the first time in a long time that there's conversations now going on between the city and the county, and it's we're working towards that.
Good. That's great to hear.
Absolutely.
Great job, Mayor.
Would there be any benefit to us trying to connect you guys with MDE, or is that conversation, have you had that recently with MDE?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump back into that again as well.
Okay. I mean, I can resurrect that if that would be of any use.
I just feel like that there are impediments being added, and
I'm
every
sure there
time
are.
we say, yes, we're
Yeah.
okay with that impediment.
It's a moving target.
Another impediment is added to the degree that they simply don't want us to resurrect, is a stable water source that has been in effect stable for this community for more than 100 years. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to say, go suck the water out of the Antietam Creek that may or may not provide you that additional amount you need on an annual basis, rather than have the storage capacity that you know will be there and provide you backup capacity, and address some of your pressurization issues, as you continue to grow as a system. It just doesn't logistically, it doesn't make sense.
It might be good is Les still the intergovernmental guy, and at MDE? I can't remember, to have them come up here in a future work session and.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm
talk.
all
We
for
could
getting to
arrange
that
that
one,
if
'cause
you'd want to do that.
that was-
Absolutely.
When I sat in that seat, we had that conversation
Sure.
10 years ago.
Yep.
Councilmember, I fully agree with everything you said, and happy to be involved in that conversation.
Same, happy to try to get them out here and maybe, I know when I sat here, we went through and toured the reservoir and it's a shame to see it sit.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Senator, what is your input or opinion on what Councilmember Alshire said about our fire department? And
I think he's spot on. I think those are the realities. Again, not to rehash his his points there, but the city of Hagerstown is one of 4 municipalities. Your budget has doubled. What'd you say, Kristen, in the last 10 years?
Since we
12
instituted the
differential?
12 cent,
Right.
12 and a half cent.
That's not sustainable, not only for the residents of the city or for obviously this body. At a certain point in time, that real conversation is going to have to happen. Do you basically this county, they're the ones that has the obligation to provide fire service. And so at a certain point, if it's cost prohibitive for the city and the residents, so that's a conversation that could happen. So yeah, I don't disagree with what the council member said. Those are the realities. I think it's that's the path we've been going down here for quite some time. Each year we get closer to that point of, which direction we're going to go. But I agree with what he said. I think it's just the reality of what it is.
And I think the other reality is, it was more agreeable and amicable for those decades in which the county absolutely operated on a volunteer system. City volunteer system was stronger. City had the paid system, right? And they were fairly separate entities that worked cooperatively. Now the city has recognized the same union. They are adding personnel, placing them in stations, and we're basically competing for the same limited number of personnel to do exactly the same thing, creating that duplicate, process. And I think that I could be wrong, but I think within the next 2 or 3 years, that will that issue will be sort of a fight within itself, because we'll be competing to do the same thing. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's just sort of a biding of time until we get.
Do you know, you referenced, those other communities that came up with it. Was that just an internal, agreement that those municipalities and county, you mentioned, I think it was Anne Arundel County.
So Annapolis and Anne Arundel.
Right. Did they come up with just their own agreement,
They
like
have
two
a tax-
bodies, they were able to work something
Yes,
out?
they have a tax
Nothing legislatively,
differential
they just
that
got around and
includes
figured it out.
fire service.
Right.
So Annapolis gets differential because it has that particular item. It's
Ocean City,
included.
same way.
Cumberland, but Allegheny's pretty much decided, Cumberland, you're going to be the fire service entity for the county, and so they reimburse them so that they don't have to provide that. And Salisbury basically says, if you're within our due district, there's a cost for that. And so they sort of take the jurisdictional politics out of it. We've obviously already moved down that differential road, so it just makes sense, if we're going to do that, to either stay on course and provide those adjustments accordingly so that we can continue to afford the fire company we need to provide, and the county can continue to grow its fire system it wants to, or it's got to be rolling this one system. I mean, there just aren't a lot of other choices when you add up the math.
Senator, you mentioned the truancy bill. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about what that looks like? Because I haven't.
Sure. I'll start off, and Delegate Schindler, happy to, jump in as well. I think it was kind of a byproduct of a couple different conversations. We had a constituent reach out to us, very passionate advocate for truancy in children as far as, the services that aren't being provided, particularly to children that either aren't enrolled in school or they're in school and they're, basically not showing up and who's checking on them and what's happened to them and stuff like that. To the conversations we had in that stakeholders meeting, 3 weeks ago, I believe that was one of the topics towards the end that Delegate Burnett brought up was truancy. And I think that was one of the goals and objectives of that conversation, which is why I brought that up earlier is I think it's best to have those in a transparent way going forward. What that would look like, Councilmember, to answer your question, we just had this conversation yesterday. What I brought up as a possibility was in Frederick 2 years ago, we passed a delegation bill in Frederick. So as you guys know, I represent mostly Washington County, but I'm also a member of the Frederick County delegation also because I have a northern portion of Frederick County. In Frederick County, they passed a truancy pilot program that already mostly was about 6 counties on the Eastern Shore that had it already. And then Hartford and Kent County added it not too long ago. We added Frederick to it 2 years ago. And what it does, it allows the authority of the circuit court, the administrative judge, to create a truancy program, not in a punitive manner, so to speak, but more in a services manner of when these children are identified that I think the benchmark was 10%. So if a child missed, 10% of school, which would be roughly 18 days, that then they have to come to the court with their parent or guardian. Again, not in a punitive manner, but what's going on here? Get in front of some folks, find out what resources are needed, what wraparound services may be needed. Basically, why is this child not in school? What is that, as we all like to talk about, what is that root cause? And so that's something Frederick just implemented. It got passed a year ago. They just started their program, I believe, in January of this year. Our conversation we had yesterday, we're going to get some additional information on how that's been going for the last, 8 to 9 months and what that program looks like exactly. I want to have a conversation here, obviously, with Judge Wilson, who's our administrative judge here in Washington County. Again, within that conversation, I think at the stakeholders meeting would be a great conversation piece. And then there were some other things she talked about in regards to child protective services. And I'll turn it over to you because I know that you were involved. Yes, go ahead.
When you touch base with them and see how that 9 months is going, can you
Oh, absolutely.
get back to us?
Yeah, my plan is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to again have that in that stakeholders conversation, which I know that Councilmember Burnett has been in, and obviously I'm sure that you folks can. I mean, I don't want to speak to who's involved or not involved, but yes, that will be a discussion, and happy to share it with you guys individually as well once we kind of work through that process. Yes, ma'am.
And that's the elementary, middle, and high school level. It will touch it. It will be a program for all levels of.
Yeah, the conversation, as the senator mentioned, started with a constituent who was concerned and wanted to find a way to codify educational neglect, because what seems to be an unrecognized issue is there are children that are slipping through the cracks that are truant from school, whether it be that they were never enrolled in school of any sort. So, they may be unhomed and just never enrolled in any sort of public or private education, just no school, or they've been truant for so long that they've been unenrolled from the school system. And so those students are off the books essentially and not being tracked and losing, of course, that safety net that comes along with public school, whether it's, getting some food, whether it's mandatory reporters in the schools, if there's any sort of abuse going on.
Do we have numbers for Washington County? Like, do we know what that looks like for Washington County?
So again, we're doing some research. We just had that call yesterday, but what the constituent had claimed to us is that the number she was given is that there were 2. But again, I think that these are children that weren't being tracked at all. Right. So the statistics are going to be very hard because they're either were never enrolled in school in the first place, or assumed had moved because they hadn't been to school in a year. There's some gaps there in the law that these children are falling through. So that's sort of the 2 pieces of trying to figure out a legislation that can try and bridge that and keep those children from falling through the gaps.
Yeah, I think you put it right. That's the challenge, right? Children that have been enrolled in school, I think there's a higher likelihood with the potential program we talked about to be able to capture that cohort, so to speak, because if they're in and they start to miss time, let's get them in front of some resources and folks before they come off the rolls. I think that's a little bit easier problem to tackle. That other group, though, that never get enrolled in the first place, that's the harder one to kind of address because you don't know if they exist or they don't. You have no idea.
It
And
is legal,
so,
though. That is legal, though,
what's that?
unschooling.
As far as,
An educational curriculum you can set up for your child.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
if you want to homeschool. I mean,
Okay, I
that's-
just want to make sure.
Yeah,
that-
no, I
that
understand that. No,
Folks
I'm-
aren't getting the
No, no.
misconception. that you-
Appreciate the,
100%.
appreciate the clarification. I think the individuals we're talking about are the unfortunate, individuals that aren't being homeschooled. There's no schooling happening at all. And typically you have a lot of, obviously, root cause issues, breakdowns in families, things of that nature, and just trying to figure out who is that population, how do we address them and get them the right services, to be able to make them successful.
Absolutely. And we're not sure exactly how to do that, whether that's, people that report like you would a CPS report. There's really not, there's a gray area there in the books, because as you said, you can homeschool. So who's to say a child's not just being
You
homeschooled?
can also unschool.
Right.
That's a term.
Right. But these are children that are just not getting any sort of education at all, or have been pulled out of school and never put in any type of, school, whether it's an unhomed situation or something like that. So.
But we'll definitely bring it back to you guys as this body, as well as I think to that stakeholder conversation that was, because that kind of conversation already started a couple weeks ago when we were in that
I'm
meeting.
sure we're going to readdress it.
Oh,
on
I'm
that
sure,
one too,
yeah.
so, yeah. Anything else? Good? All right.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thanks
absolutely.
for having us.
Appreciate you, all three of you. Thank you.
3 former city employees at the big dog chair. Delegate, I was hoping you'd sit down and say, let me talk to you.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we have Vote 16 Hagerstown, empowering young local votes. Zoe Burnett, Washington County Director.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Zoe Burnett, and I serve as the Washington County Director for Vote 16. I am here today to ask you to consider extending the right to vote in municipal elections to 16 and 17-year-olds in Hagerstown. Vote 16 is not just about lowering the voting age. It is about strengthening civic engagement, improving voter turnout, and preparing the next generation to be active participants in our democracy. Young people are directly impacted by the decisions this council makes every day, from transportation to recreation, from safety to education and job access. Our voices deserve to be represented. Research shows that 16 and 17-year-olds are ready. They're often more civically educated than older first-time voters because they are actively learning government and history in schools. When given the opportunity, they show up. In Tacoma Park, where 16 and 17-year-olds have been allowed to vote since 2013, turnout among this age group has been nearly 3 times higher than voters aged 18 to 24. That shows not only readiness, but eagerness to participate. Expanding the vote to 16 and 17-year-olds would also help Hagerstown lead the way in Maryland. Cities like Tacoma Park and Hyattsville already proven that this works. Even globally, we see success. Scotland and Wales already allow 16-year-olds to vote, and the United Kingdom has found strong engagement from young voters. I would also like to add, Hagerstown would be the first Western Maryland city to allow 16-year-old and 17-year-olds to vote in local elections. By including young people in the democratic process, we are setting on the path of lifelong engaged civic involvement. We are also bridging the gap between government and the next generation, building trust and accountability that will strengthen Hagerstown's future. I respectfully urge you to consider taking up this change through a charter amendment or ordinance to give 16 and 17-year-olds a voice in the local decisions that affect their daily lives. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to serving all the people of Hagerstown, youth included.
Thanks, Zoe. Have you got any questions for Zoe?
No questions, just more like a shout out. I'm very impressed. You did a lot of research, and I had no idea that Tacoma Park even allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. I think that's like a really good opportunity for our city because, again, you guys have a different mindset and perspective on things, and to not include you would be more of a downfall than a, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It would be more of a positive. I believe you would have more of a positive influence by allowing that age group to be included in that gap. So I thank you for sharing this, and I appreciate your forthcoming with bringing this to the body. So thank you, Zoe.
And did you say Tacoma Park and Hyattsville have already
That's what I was going to
passed? Okay.
I had no idea.
And College Park, I'm pretty sure.
College Park also?
Yes.
I didn't even know that the ages I didn't even know that the ages
Yes.
could be changed.
Yeah, you're allowed to
that's-
vote in local elections at
That's
16 to 17 years old.
So is this, like you put this organization together, or is?
I did not.
Kind of
It's
broad?
kind of broad. It's all over, at least America. There's Vote 16 USA and then Vote 16 Maryland. And I was the one who reached out to them to start the Washington County chapter. And then they branch out to other people within different counties to start chapters.
So it's, since you kind of spearheaded it here,
Mhm.
you'll kind of bring the organization together and just kind of educate them on the importance and all that good stuff.
Yes.
I love it.
Anyone else? Good. Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Appreciate it.
I did not know you could change that. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
I know, I didn't either. Learn something new every day.
Right.
Okay, I need to ask for a motion to vote in special session. In a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in special session. Let me get to these. All right, first motion up is approval of a resolution inspection agreement for the property located at 149 North Potomac, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that mayor and city council approve the attached resolution authorizing the inspection agreement of 149 North Potomac LLC for the property located at 149 North Potomac Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next one, removal from the table, approval of a decorative fence panels at Weller's Alley.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to remove from the table the approval of the decorative fence panel at Weller's Alley.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Last but not least, what? This one? This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, come on up, Jim.
Jim and Brittany.
And Brittany. Discussion of Weller's Alley decorative fence.
So Brittany is up here because she was the one that applied for and was awarded, well, the city was awarded a grant from DHCD. It's part of their Community Health and Safety Works program. And, you know, part of the focus was not only beautification of downtown areas, but also trying to improve safety in downtown areas. And one area that has been a continuing issue is Weller's Alley, which is the alley behind the post office. It doesn't look very good, just because you've got post offices chain link fence enclosing their storage yard. So with Hagerstown Brewing, you know, people are leaving that building and looking over there, and it's just not a very attractive view shed. The other issue in Weller's Alley is there's been a lot of loitering in that alley, especially sort of toward the western end of the post office property. It starts out as a curve, but then as you head toward Jonathan Street, it actually turns into a small retaining wall. And a lot of people have been sitting on that wall down in that area because there's shade, and it just seems like a place that they want to congregate.
Ends up being a lot of trash there as well.
Yes.
Right. So what we came up with, we had a landscape architect come up with some different schemes, and those are attached to the memo, some different ideas that we could try to address both of these issues. And the one that we ended up with is some sort of a decorative fence or screen that would be placed in the alley, but right at the edge, basically right in front of the post office's chain link fence, which would help screen the post office property, but it's also going to prevent people from sitting on that retaining wall as they go down there. So this project was 100% grant funded from the states. We put it out to bid, and the low bidder that we had on the contract was for $89,000. So we would like to go ahead and move ahead with this project. And time is of the essence because the grant, we need to get them under contract as quickly as possible because the term of the grant is in September, basically, and then we have to get the work done by the end of the calendar year in order to do a final report to the state. And I don't know, Brittany, if you have anything to add.
I like both the options too, the lighting at the end there as well for security.
And this came to conception out of meetings with the several business owners and the post office at the beginning of last year, I believe, which made us apply for this grant when we saw this opportunity. So we've had conversations with the post office. They're 100% for it. We've had conversations with the owners of Hub City Brewery and the apartments that are right there along Market Walk as well. They're all on board as well.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For the record, I apologize. I apologize, because I did vote no on it at the last session. And the reason being was that I'm human and I overlooked it. And to my eye, I thought that this was a city budget. So that's number one. And number two, these drawings are a lot more interesting and intricate. I mean, they scream beautification. I love it.
Well, we realized that this was done with the previous council. So most of you haven't seen this before.
Right.
So that's okay.
Okay.
And I think like the last picture we have, it was like, what is, like, it just didn't give decorative.
It was probably just the
it was just
the graphic or of
Maybe.
the
It didn't seem like, what is it supposed to be?
It was
hiding?
technical.
just
It was
seemed like you could
technical.
It was
still
my
look through
poor
it.
attempt to try to show where this fence would
Yeah.
go, but it made it look like a yellow chain link fence was going
Yeah,
back in.
and then you could still see straight through to the other fence. So we was like, what is it
Right,
supposed to be doing?
right.
So this
Yeah, that was my fault.
definitely gives me a different
And for
perspective.
clarification, the chain link fence would be removed.
No.
No, it was still.
No, it
That,
will stay.
so that is federal property
Because
because
it's the
that
post
belongs
office.
to the post office.
I see.
Yes.
And they need to retain that for security.
Yes.
of the
I
post
see, I
office.
see.
Yes.
So we're just beautifying the outside. Okay.
So on section 2, is it going on both sides? Or just one side?
I think it would just be the end.
It's actually,
Section 2, which is Market Walk, it's not going in that alley at all.
Right.
It's just in section 1.
So we don't have concerns with individuals congregating in that area?
well,
So short answer was we did. However, we used money from the Main Street Maryland grant and got planters for that area. And that actually seems to have solved the gathering in that space. And then we also got just a chain link metal fence for now for that space. And that has solved that issue there.
On both sides?
On one side, there's planters, and then on the other side, there's a chain link fence.
and it's just it's a 4-foot high chain link fence. The only purpose of that, along the Market Walk, if you walk down that walk, you have brick walls on either side. And in certain places, those walls are the perfect sitting height. And so we just installed the fence in those areas to try to discourage people hanging out there.
Decorative string lighting would be great there too for security.
That's on the eventual to-do list.
Yeah, a lot,
Yes.
I mean, me included. I
Yes.
park back there and walk to games, and I think it'd be really cool.
That's our number one alley to target first for string lights. We have the lights, we're just figuring out the implementation.
Okay. Anything else, council? Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
appreciate it. Right. Yeah.
Oh, the next side.
Right.
Oh,
Right
gotcha,
now.
gotcha.
So that was the discussion for this
Got it.
motion. Yep. All right. Next motion, for approval of a contract for Weller's Alley decorative fence.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to approve a contract with Canada Contracting LLC in the amount of $83,169 to fabricate and install decorative fence panels along Weller's Alley at the rear of the U.S. Post Office property at 44 West Franklin Street. I further move to authorize up to $16,831 in additional expenditures for this project to cover testing, inspections, and contingencies. Funding for this project is through a $100,000 grant from the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that's the last thing in special session. The special session is now adjourned. We will go to city administrator.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Anderson.
I have nothing tonight.
Councilman Flaherty.
I have nothing.
Councilman Alshire.
So I certainly appreciate our state and federal representatives being here this evening. Clearly, at times, it is not uncommon for it to become a bit catty or tongue-in-cheek between Paul and I. Just for the public's awareness, we certainly didn't raise taxes last year to pay for the purchase of YMCA. I think that we all were here through those weeks of deliberations with finance staff and departments and, you know, identified over and over that they were raised or adjusted for adequately meeting our expectations and our desires for our public safety system. So, you know, just want to make sure that, you know, folks weren't confused, you know, in hearing that clip that is obviously incorrect.
I thought you would catch that one.
I just let it go. I was like, okay, whatever you say.
Councilwoman Bell.
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, I have a couple things. Number one, I attended on Sunday, First Christian Church. They had their 150th anniversary. That's amazing. 150 years of faith and serving the community. I think that was wonderful. Myself and John Barr, we were both there and gave proclamations, and it was really cool to see the gathering there. Number two, the Best Burger Contest is this Saturday. It is 12 to 4, Brittany, am I correct? Yes. On South Potomac Street. 10 different restaurants in town, and we're going to judge a best burger. We have myself, Jamie Lawrence from One Room Media, Ryan Smetzer, and who else? Danny from Hagerstown Eats will be judging the burgers. It should be a great time. I encourage everyone to attend. You can get on the City of Hagerstown's website and see the where to purchase tickets at and how many you got sold so far. Okay, awesome. And the last thing is we have Remembrance in the Park at 6 o'clock over at City Park. I hope everybody shows up. Do I get a motion to adjourn? A second? Any discussion on any items this evening? Okay, we're now adjourned.
Is it at 6 p.m.?